Football has always been about knocking heads, and these days, so are a lot of other sports and activities. But we've moved past the days when getting your bell rung, so to speak, was just a brief impediment to going right back into a game. Pierre Rouzier, one of the University of Massachusetts two-team physicians, knows those rung bells for what they really are: dangerous concussions that need immediate attention and a solution that's disarmingly simple.
It's higher levels, like NFL players that are running faster, hitting harder, things like that. But there's always been concussions. There's always been kids in sports hitting their heads against things or each other and sustaining concussions or car accidents. But what we're learning is that how important it is to have the appropriate rest for the brain to recover so they don't return to play too soon.
Figuring out who is likely to sustain concussions is not an easy task, but Rouzier says that history does yield some useful information.
But one thing that's hard is just trying to figure out, well, you don't know who's going to get it. Some people are more concussion prone. Some people are concussion prone. And why are they concussion prone? We don't know. I mean, why are certain people tear both ACLs? I mean, we can sort of see the biomechanics of it and think that they're going to have a problem with their ACL, but they may or may not. And then we don't know, but we do know that if you've had a concussion, your likelihood of having another concussion is higher. And we do know that if you've had a recent concussion, if you have a second concussion, you're going to at least have symptoms which are prolonged much longer, if not have one of these rare but catastrophic events. It's right afterwards. And we do know that the younger brain has more catastrophic events than the older brain. So those are things that we do know.
One problem is that, for all that's known nowadays about the effects of concussions, diagnosing one can still be tricky. Rouzier says a lot depends on the athlete's willingness themselves to own up to having been hit in the head hard enough to affect them.
Play basketball. When someone is playing their sport and hits their head and has a headache or feels dizzy, the most important thing is that they come off the field and that they tell you whether they're, depending on what level they are, and whether they have an athletic trainer on the field, or whether they have a coach on the field, or if we're present, then those people tell us, and that we're able to determine if they've had a concussion and manage them appropriately. Management simply is rest, is to not be exercising and not sustaining any more contact to their head.
It is difficult territory even for the most experienced medical pro, and Rouzier acknowledges that the UMass staff's efforts aren't always 100% effective.
A bad feeling, even if you do all the appropriate steps, is when you're the physician on the sideline caring for a kid, and I mean caring in the word care, and you send them back, you worry about them having another problem, even when they've gone back, done all of the steps right. And we've done all the steps right on at least 2 recent occasions, and they've had a problem.
Still, the state of head injury education is much better nowadays, and there's plenty of evidence that even younger athletes are getting the message about safety.
It was harder 10 years ago. And that's part of as the circle comes back around. You ask the question about, is the education changing? Kids are growing up knowing about concussions. Kids are growing up telling their peers, you shouldn't tough it out, you should tell the coach, you should tell the trainer, you should tell the doctor. And parents are knowing it. So,
for GazetteNet, this is Don St. John.